Hello. I'm excited to talk to you. You're smart, you're successful, but lately you feel like you're running on fumes. No matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, you're still behind. You're working nights, you're working weekends, even vacations, and your laptop is always open. Does this sound familiar? Well, you're not alone because so many executive women fall into this pattern, these patterns of overwork, of perfectionism, of people pleasing. And these patterns, these behaviors, these habits, so to speak, started a long time ago. And they served you well at the time. And now they are pushing you into burnout. The problem is that these behaviors often look like strengths on one side of the equation, and they become automatic and overused under stress, and they end up sabotaging you. They sabotage your success and they sabotage your health more than you probably realize. And today, I'm going to break these down, not in a lot of detail. I do plan to take each one of these. I think I will do a separate live on each one or provide some more in-depth detail in a separate post or in another broadcast or in a podcast that I think I'm going to be starting soon. So look for that coming up. I'm going to break these behaviors down so that you can shift them before they cost you your career, your health, your relationships. One of my clients, female executive, real powerhouse, who was working really one of these high potential leaders moving her way up in the organization, said, I just need a break. But if I step away, everything seems to fall apart. She was constantly proving her worth through her work and saying yes to everything, raising her hand for every extra project, pushing herself until she hit a wall. This wasn't her fault. These patterns were programmed into her long ago. And the good news is that they can be rewired. Let's talk about these. There's actually 8 habits that I'm going to talk through. I'm going to have to go back to a different screen for one of them because I just added one, but I want to share that one with you. So let's look at these. These behaviors often start as coping mechanisms in childhood in order for you to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel valued. But in leadership, they can often lead to exhaustion, overwork, overwhelm, and burnout. We're going to take each behavior and look at what's the positive side. I love this one coach that I have who often says, what's the positive intent? When we have something, whether it's a habit or a behavior that we're trying to change, or that something we do that we know just doesn't serve us well, what's the underlying positive intent of that behavior? And oftentimes there's an amazing, powerful, positive intent, and yet there's a dark side. When you're under stress or when you overuse it, there's a dark side to it. So let's take each one individually. I will provide a little bit on each one. And like I said, we'll go into more detail on some of these later. And I'm actually putting together an ebook that will also go through some of these. So looking hopefully maybe in the next couple, 2-3 weeks. All right, the first one, the overworker, or AKA the hard worker. You go the extra mile. You take initiative. You get things done. The dark side, or under stress, or when it's overused, is you can't stop working. At night, on weekends, on vacation, you continue to push and power through. And oftentimes it is just a habit of continuing to work, doing one more thing. You end up sacrificing your health, you sacrifice your sleep, and you end up sacrificing relationships because of your lack of presence, because of the reactive behavior that can come out of that. And you sacrifice those for your job, for your career. So that's the first one, the overworker, or AKA the hard worker. The second one is the people pleaser, oftentimes looked at as the collaborator. You build really strong relationships at work, and you build strong relationships everywhere. And you're always seen as being the team player. And the dark side of that, where what happens when it's overused or used in under stress, is that you say yes to too much. You take on others' responsibilities and you leave no time for your own well being, your own needs, making sure that you are filling your cup and that you're not working from a place of depletion. So that was the people pleaser, AKA the collaborator. The next one is the defensive reactor. Now, this is one that hits home really close for me, AKA the fierce defender. You have a very strong sense of justice, of fairness, of making sure that everyone is valued and respected, and that you follow the rules and that you're following standards and processes, and you want to make sure things are done well. This can turn on the dark side into emotional reactivity, or what my husband and I used to playfully call does not play well with others, where you feel personally attacked when things don't align with your values, your beliefs, what you think should be right, or the way things should be done right. And this can lead to burnout, and from fighting battle after battle after battle, or, dying on every sword, dying on every hill. So this is the defensive reactor, or the positive side of this, the fierce defender. The next one is the helper or the caretaker. That's more the dark side, the overused side. On the positive side can be referred to as the mentor. You support and uplift your team. You create a positive team culture. However, and the overuse, under stress, dark side of this is you overfunction for others. You neglect your own needs. And oftentimes you end up becoming resentful because you're not getting what you need in order to be that wonderful mentor, that supportive and uplifting leader. And you end up exhausted. So that was the helper / caretaker, AKA the mentor. The next one is the overachiever, AKA the high performer, which I know most of you are. Most of you. You wouldn't be in the position you are of a woman executive leader, a high level senior leader, if you weren't a high performer. You set high standards. You aim for excellence. You drive for results. And on the dark side of that, when it's overused, when it is used under stress and duress, you feel like you're never doing enough. There's often an underlying fear of failure, and you push beyond exhaustion, which leads to health issues, which leads to reactivity, which leads to the inability to manage your emotional well-being, and you manage your emotions. And so oftentimes people will either isolate or end up going into reactive mode as well. So that was the overachiever, AKA the high performer. All right, we've got 3 more. The nice girl, AKA the empathetic leader. Being empathetic is amazing. You create harmony. You try to avoid conflict, which this often sounds positive. I actually think it's a negative, but part of what this is that you help to ensure that conflicts don't get personal, that conflict conversations are productive, and that they cover the issues and maintain respect and maintain a focus on the issues. You foster inclusivity. However, on the dark side, under stress, under more of a feeling of overuse, when this is used to a negative extent, you struggle to set boundaries. You avoid difficult conversations. And often you suppress your own emotions, you suppress your own needs in order to be that empathetic leader for other people. So this is the nice girl, AKA the empathetic leader. And then the second to last one is the perfectionist. And oftentimes on the good side of this will be called the detail-oriented strategist. You produce high quality work. You ensure excellence. However, when you're at that perfectionist, on the positive side of it, you have a real focus for achievement. However, right on the edge of achievement is perfectionism. And that includes micromanaging, oftentimes procrastinating out of a fear of making mistakes, and you never really get a full feeling of satisfaction with the work you have. Your constant focus is on how could it have been better, whether that's for yourself or even for your team, which then creates resentment on the side of your team. And then the last one is this lone wolf or hero. You're highly capable, you're independent, you're resourceful, you take initiative and solve problems without waiting for permission, without waiting for somebody to ask you. However, under stress, you become the lone wolf, the hero, refusing to ask for help, overloading yourself, and often isolating yourself from support, even denying support when it's offered. This can lead to exhaustion, to burnout, and actually your leaders can see this as a negative in terms of respecting you and how you're able to collaborate with other leaders. These come from a couple different sources. I am still in the process of refining these, so I would love to hear your thoughts on these pairs. And I will create some posts with these pairs and with this table in it. And I would love to hear your feedback on, this doesn't quite make sense, or, oh, you know what about this? And maybe help me add to them and build them out a little bit. And I'm super curious, which one do you identify most with? Before we close out, I want to share with you a few more things. First of all, let's look at some statistics, because these messages around burnout are not, everybody's hearing. When I tell people that I'm an executive coach for women in burnout, they're like, oh my God, you must be so busy. And that's because burnout is so widespread. Now, there's a McKinsey & Company study, I think it was from a couple of years ago, that says that 42% of women in leadership roles say they are burned out compared to 35% of men. And I'll be honest with you, and now this one wasn't just in women in leadership. I did read one survey, though, that said 80% of women report feeling burned out. So if it's 42% of leadership, think about that 80% of all of those people on your team, your mid-level managers, your frontline leaders, and all of the women on your team, how 80% of women are reporting feeling burned out. And it impacts people's careers because 50% of women say that burnout has made them reconsider their careers. This is something you do not have to leave your career. If it's something you truly enjoy and love and want to stay at, you do not have to leave your career in order to end burnout. The biggest thing that I try to focus on, because of my own personal situation with my family, is that there are so many studies that link chronic stress to the increase of heart disease, depression, autoimmune disorders, cancer, all these things that can take you out of your career for a long time. I don't want that to happen. I want you to be able to make the choice consciously and intentionally and not leave your career out of burnout or a fear of being burned out, to make that choice intentionally and out of a grounded decision. Let's move into a few ways that you can shift and rewire these patterns. I'll go over the 3 steps quickly, and then I will go into each one a little bit more deeply. These are just habitual brain patterns, okay? And they don't have to define you. They don't have to define your future. The first key is really recognizing them and then starting the pattern, the repetitive pattern of making that shift and building new behaviors to shift those behaviors. And they don't go away forever. They're always looming there. It's how well can you come into awareness of them and be able to create some space in between the thought that leads to this behavior and the actual behavior. And the thought leads to a feeling, and the feeling leads to a behavior. So the first thing is awareness, identifying which of these patterns end up running on autopilot when you are under stress. Which one do you most identify with? The second step is observation, really noticing when do they show up. Maybe even keeping a log of when did this behavior show up? Not like when in your past did it start, when in your day, when in your week, when over the course of a month does this show up? And what are the situations? And I've gone over this many times. The circumstance doesn't cause it. It's our thought about that circumstance. And so the first step is understanding what's the circumstance that you're in when you have that behavior. The second step is starting to observe your thoughts and your feelings. I have to get it right. I have to get it right. And maybe the feeling is anxious or anxiety. And then the action is reviewing and re-reviewing and reviewing and redoing over and over and over to make sure a draft of something is absolutely perfect before anybody even makes the first review of it. So the first step is awareness. The second step is observation. The third, and observation is observation of the circumstance where the behavior occurs and starting to see if you can uncover what are my thoughts about that circumstance and how do I feel when I'm in that circumstance, when I'm in that situation. And then the third step is intentional action. Keep in mind, we cannot just action our way out of things. We have to dig into the beliefs, the thoughts that are driving our feelings, whether that's out of fear, out of anger, out of frustration, out of boredom, whatever those feelings are, that's what drives the actions. That's what drives those behaviors. So the first step, that awareness, identifying which behaviors are running on autopilot under stress. Take an honest inventory. What are your default responses under pressure? Do you overwork? Do you people please? Do you react defensively? Do you become a perfectionist? You could ask yourself a few questions. When I feel overwhelmed, what's my immediate reaction? What behaviors do I repeat, even though I know they're not helping? When I say yes, do I really mean no? And how often do I do that? Do I feel resentment, exhaustion, frustration under certain situations, within certain interactions? And you could just, like I mentioned earlier, keep a log. Try it for a week. Notice your moments of stress, your reaction, and the impact. And you will start to see a pattern emerge. And I want you to be careful to attribute that behavior to the situation and the circumstance. And we can go into more detail. I can even break down, we could do a whole nother session maybe on just that link between the situation, the circumstance, your thought about it, how that thought drives a feeling, and that feeling is what drives your actions, which then drives your results. So the second step after awareness is observation. Pay attention. Really start to become the observer of your own behavior. When do you have those energy dips throughout the day? Oftentimes, those energy dips are signals for when you're going to react out of stress. Whichever one of those patterns is most familiar, most applicable to you, usually it's when there's some sort of an energy dip or when there is a level of anxiety of needing to have something done. It can be, what triggered you into that behavior, into the one of those 8 things. How did my body respond? How did I feel? Was I tense? Was I fatigued? Was my mind racing? Did I feel empowered afterward? Or did I feel drained? Or did I feel resentful or angry? And see if you can do a check-in. Maybe set a reminder on your watch or on your phone to do an energy check-in every few hours. And just ask yourself these questions. What am I feeling emotionally and physically? What happened just before I felt this way? And then 3, am I acting out of habit or am I acting out of choice? So those are 3 practical steps for the observation piece. And the first one is to, keep a log. Intentional action. Create the space to respond differently. When you are in a situation where you tend to react on autopilot, even if you can pause for 5 seconds and take a breath. And when you take a breath, it can't be, that's not a healthy breath. A nice, good, calming breath is maybe breathe in for 3 seconds and out for 6. Whatever your inhale is, double the exhale. See if you can do that 2 or 3 times. And ask yourself, what's the outcome I really want here? And if I were acting from a place of wisdom instead of habit, what would I do? And will saying yes to this mean saying no to myself? If it's a situation where you're saying yes to something that maybe you really don't want to. And then the practical steps are pause before answering, especially with requests. Use, I appreciate you asking me and let me think about it. And that gives you some time. And if they need an answer immediately, see if you can say, I appreciate the offer. Right now, my plate is full. And I think that such and such person might be a better fit at this time. If it can wait till X time, then I could probably help you out. Use a pattern interrupt. That deep breath, in and exhale twice as long. Stand up, stretch. Maybe just give yourself a, before you respond, even if you're, maybe stand up, see what you can do before you respond to the person. See if there's a way that you can create your own burnout-proof boundary statement. Have a go-to phrase ready, whether that's something like, I'd love to help you, and right now my plate is full. Or I can support you in this way, and I won't be able to take this on completely. Is there someone else who could assist as well? And schedule some non-negotiable recovery time. Where can you provide yourself just a few minutes? And if you can, 10 minutes in between meetings, in between whatever it is that's going on, can you give yourself 5 to 10 minutes of non-negotiable energy recovery time? I hope this has been helpful, and I hope some of this resonates with you. If any of this resonates with you, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling burned out, if you're unsure how to break these patterns, let's talk. I offer a free end burnout call. And in that call, we map out your burnout patterns and we start shifting them before it costs you your health, before it costs you your career. Click the link below in the comments, and I look forward to speaking with you. Thanks for joining me. And again, you might have already stopped, but here we're keeping going. Please go through these 8 behaviors and let me know in the comments which one resonates the most for you. Which one is your go-to under stress? Thanks for joining me.